Hey, welcome to the Combatcast. It's a man called Dave Chevy. Please like and subscribe if you watch us and you haven't subscribed yet. Appreciate it. We're going to talk some fights today. We're going to talk about last week's fight night. But most importantly, we're going to talk about UFC 320 this week. But Chevy, before we get started, let's tell people what we got coming up.
Dave trying to get me canceled, starting to stream while I'm talking. Yeah. October 11th, UFC Fight Night, Oliveira versus Gamrot. Gamrot stepping in for injured Fiziev. That's a 7 p.m. Rio de Janeiro card. And then 7 p.m. Eastern. And then October 18th, UFC Fight Night, DeRitter versus Allen. 7 p.m. Vancouver. Allen stepping in for, what's his name? I can't even keep track of all these people pulling out of fights anymore. I don't know. Allen stepping in there. And then October 25th, UFC 321, Aspinall versus Gane for the heavyweight title. That is a 2 p.m. Eastern pay-per-view from Abu Dhabi. Your boy booked an away trip that day, expecting to be home at night to watch UFC. And going to have to avoid the group chat, I guess, and then start it later.
Just personally on that fight, I am... such a Tom Aspinall fan, and I expect him to win that fight, but I just feel like it's the heavyweight division. Anything can happen, and I'm going to be bummed. No offense to Gane, but if Tom loses that for some reason and gets caught,
That'd be devastating. I would be devastated if that happened. I can't stand Gane, and I'm a huge Tom fan. So
okay, so yeah, we're on the same page here. Well, let's get to this past week's fight night. I actually got to watch the co-main event and main event. I actually came in right towards the end of the co-main event, and man. Okay. Well, actually, you know what? Is there anything else you want to talk about on this card first?
Yeah. Justin Tafa, speaking of pulling out, Justin Tafa had to pull out. He fights at heavyweight, had some weight cutting issue or whatever. So I looked this up. Tafa brothers have pulled out of 7 UFC fights between them. So I think just cut them both at this point. There's too many guys on the roster anyway. Heard it was a weight cutting issue. He's a heavyweight. I have zero sympathy for people that, miss weight multiple times. There's too many people on the roster. Just cut him. I don't care to watch him fight anyway. So get rid of those guys. That fight didn't happen, obviously. Jake Matthews versus Neil Magny. We got to talk about this one a little bit. So Jake Matthews beating Neil Magny all up and down the ring. In the first round, he had him in a choke, and the ref stopped the fight with 1 second left. But Neil was clearly not out. But I could see why the ref stopped it, because his arm kind of went limp. But Neil said it was because he was counting down from the clacker, so he knew that the bell was going off or whatever. And you could tell that he wasn't out at all as soon as Jake got off him. He was completely there. So the ref then said, no, I didn't stop the fight. I just stopped the round. That was the end of the round. So then in typical Neil Magny fashion, after getting his ass kicked for 2 rounds, he comes back, goes all out in round 3, and ends up getting the sub on Jake Matthews in round 3. So, it's great for Neil because he wasn't out, so the ref should not have stopped the fight. So good on the ref for, 2 wrongs do make a right, apparently, lying and saying that he wasn't stopping the fight. But bummer for Jake Matthews. They said that they're going to, complain about the stoppage or contest the result or whatever. That never goes anywhere, and it'll mean nothing at all. So bummer for him. But also, I think don't let Neil Magny go to a 3rd round with you, because he always comes back in the 3rd round.
Yeah. That's so funny. That's a wild.
Yeah. And Jimmy Crute, I mean, I guess we got mixed up here on this co-main and this co-main event, because the UFC, whoever runs their website, should have been fired years ago. But so Jimmy Crute versus Ivan Erslan, that was the co-main event. But let's talk about that now.
Okay. So I'll just share this here. But Jimmy Crute, man, I walked in and he had this choke on it. I think you said in the group shot, it looked like he was just trying to rip his head off.
They end up calling it a reverse can opener. So
interesting. Okay, I didn't know that.
Some sort of modified neck crank kind of thing. It was very strange.
Yeah, it did not look like this is high level MMA, but that just looked like like some guy just trying to pull your head off. That was interesting. But hey, good for Jimmy Crute getting the win. And I was trying to think of like opponents for him because he probably wants to try to crack into the top 15. And maybe this isn't the best fight for him, but I think it might be fun. Alonzo Menafield, I think, could be an interesting fight for him next. I like to see those two.
Have they fought before? I feel like Jimmy Crute's fought everyone. He's been around for like.
I wasn't sure when I looked that up. I was like, but I was like, I'd like to see it. So
yeah. He looked great. Bummer for Ivan. I mean, so basically what happened was he had him he was sitting on his back and he pulled his chin up. And Ivan didn't fight the hands or anything. It kind of seemed like he was looking for a way out, to be honest with you. I'm sure I'm wrong. I mean, it looked very painful for sure, but it didn't look like he was doing any of the things that you would typically associate with fighting out of a choke. So, but yeah, good for Jimmy Crute. Always want to watch him fight. He's trying to be on the next Australian card, which I believe is February or something.
I'll just point too. It's just super cool to see him still having this career. Yeah, I like guys like him and Neil Magny, Jim Miller, who's been around forever, but you know what I mean? Those guys that keep fighting and they're kind of in the middle. It's cool to see them get a win. If they're not, as long as they're not getting their brains bashed in, then
yeah. And also, so Jack Jenkins versus Raymond Tavares is who we thought was going to be the co-main event. Ramon Tavares, he missed weight by a pound or whatever. And then Jack made it look pretty easy. He got a decision win. He looked pretty dominant.
Mm-hmm. And then our main event.
Carlos Ulberg versus Dominic Reyes.
Ulberg looked like on another level here. He just looked. I mean, we wanted a Dominic Reyes story. We both did. I didn't pick him because I just had a feeling he would get caught. But just watching that exchange in the first round, I don't know. There's something about Ulberg, watching him too. He looks very cool, calm and collected, super confident. He has every right to be. It doesn't even look like those are his hardest shots. He's throwing jabs out there, and it looks.
That was just a 1-2, yeah.
Yeah, so he's dangerous, and I think for next fight for him, you want to put him in whoever's going to win this main event this weekend, UFC 320. I think he's a gift. Again, would have liked to see the Dominic Reyes story, but just looking at the way that played out, it's like, okay, let's go all in on Ulberg now, and let's see how he does. Yeah,
I had picked Reyes by decision because I thought that Reyes was going to try to fight really intelligently and safe early on and, try to get in and mix up clinches to slow Ulberg down and all that, which, he did try to fight safe, but he needed to either be all the way in or all the way out. He was just kind of in that boxing range, which is perfect for Ulberg, and he wasn't throwing anything to get Ulberg's respect. So basically he just had a freight train coming at him. So bummer for him. But anyone can get knocked out by Ulberg. So, hopefully Dom's okay. It wasn't as brutal of a knockout as some of the other ones we've seen him experience. Hopefully he can regroup again. This is just a bump in the road for him. He can work his way back to a title shot still. So, or Ulberg could be next for the title shot. But I think that's going to depend on this Jiri and Khalil Rountree fight on this upcoming card, which we can get into.
Yeah, I mean, if they have an amazing performance, and if Pereira too were to upset, Magomed, I could see them want to do Rountree and Pereira again because that first fight was so good. And obviously, either one of those guys against, Magomed, that could be a fun. Fight too. So Magomed, yeah. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I definitely think Ulberg is definitely in contention right now, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. All right, let's get to it. let's get to the big one this weekend. Ankalaev versus Pereira 2. I like this card when I looked up at it today. This is a tough fight. We'll get into it later with Pereira, but I'm interested to see what adjustments he makes. But before we get to this main card, like always, any other fights you want to point out on this card?
Oh yeah, there's some exciting fighters on the prelims. You got Austin Vanderford's back. He's on the prelims. Veronica Hardy, never mad at watching her fight. Patchy Mix is on like the early prelims, fighting a guy that doesn't have a picture on the UFC website. So hopefully he can get it together and get a win. And we like him here. Edmund Shavazian is also on the prelims. So.
Yeah, fun.
But this whole main card is fantastic. So let's get started here. Abusupiyan Magomedov versus Joe Pyfer.
Yes, the actual Magomedov. So in the first fight, Abus is 28-6-1. This guy's got 14 knockouts, 8 subs, 6 decisions. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He's 4-2 in the UFC. He's had 1 performance of the night. Joe Pyfer, 14-3, 9 KOs, 3 subs, 2 decisions. He's 5-1 in the UFC with 3 performances of the night. Joe's got power. This is an interesting matchup for him. I like Joe Pyfer. I want to believe he's the kind of guy that's going to keep making improvements, and he sounds like he's such a nerd and loves this sport for this sport. So I'm going to keep the Joe Pyfer hype train going, and I think there's going to be some fireworks early on anyway, and I think Joe's going to knock him out in round 2. But I wouldn't be surprised if Magomedov could win this fight either way. And anyway, too, by the way, decision, sub, knockout. So, but I'm going to go with my heart here. I'm going to go with Joe.
Yeah, I expect Abus to fight pretty intelligently, knowing where Pyfer's dangerous. Mm-hmm. But he will engage in the striking. So I think Pyfer will connect at some point and put him out. So I'm with you. I'm going to say late in round 2, a KO for Joe.
All right. Pretty much screaming there.
All right, moving on. Josh Emmett versus Youssef Zalal.
All right. Zalal was 17-5, 4 KOs, 9 subs, 4 decisions. He's 10-3-1 in the UFC. He's won 7 in a row. Emmett is 10-6, 7 KOs, 2 subs, 10 decisions, but he's lost 3 out of his last 4. He's had performance night twice, fight a night 3 times. Most knockdowns in UFC featherweight history. Emmett has just got that power. He just hasn't fought consistently over the last couple of years. He's had injuries and stuff too. And the other thing with Emmett is, though, on the plus side is, even though like you look at him and he's lost 3 out of those 4, he's fighting some of the best competition, and he's always got that power. So he's dangerous. However, just looking at momentum and not trying to pick with my heart all the time, I'm going to go with Youssef here, but I'm going to say it's decision.
Yeah, I don't know what the odds are on this fight, but this is definitely Zalal's toughest opponent by far.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 7 wins in a row, but no one near the level of Josh Emmett. So I think he's going to have a very hard time taking Josh down, and I don't think he can deal with Josh's power on the feet. So I'm going to pick Josh by KO round 3.
Oh, 3? I like it. All right, let's get to this fight.
All right, moving on to possible fight of the night contender. Yeah. Jiri Prochazka versus Khalil Rountree Jr.
All right, I feel like this is guaranteed fireworks. Khalil Rountree Jr., 14-6-1, 9 KOs, no subs, none needed, 5 decisions, and he's won 6 out of his last 7. All right, performance tonight 4 times, fight of the night once. This guy against Alex Pereira, the former champ, by the way, and I think that's the note. He was, he took the former champ to the limit, and Rountree's a guy that, if he shows up and everything's right, he's very dangerous. Prochazka, though, 31-5-1, 27 KOs, 3 subs, 1 decisions, 2-2 in the last 4 fights. Both those losses to Alex Pereira. So these guys do have a common opponent that they've both struggled with. He's a former UFC light heavyweight champion, though. Fight a night twice, performance a night 4 times. So Prochazka's been there. The thing with Prochazka is he's so awkward. He's throwing crazy stuff. He's working on things, and that's what makes him a wild card. And So it's like, given the success Prochazka has had, where he's been to champ and everything like that, I kind of favor him a little bit, but I can also just see where he could open himself up to getting caught here. I think this is a very close fight. I kind of favor Prochazka, but that being said, I think I'm going to pick Rountree. I'm going to go 3rd round knockout, but I think someone's going out in this fight.
Yeah, like I said, possible fight of the night contender. Giant fan of both guys. So far, Alex has been the only one to truly give Jiri problems. But I think Khalil's been getting so much better every fight, especially between his title shot and his dismantling of Jamal Hill. Like, that was a great performance he had last time. So I'm expecting a real war that could go either way, but I'm leaning towards Rountree. I think he'll be intelligent and game. So I'll say TKO round 2.
Okay. All right.
All right. First title fight of the night. Bantamweight. Merab Dvalishvili versus Cory Sandhagen.
Cory Sandhagen, 18-5, 8 KOs, 3 subs, 7 decisions. He's won 4 out of his last 5. Fight of the night 2 times, performance of the night 3 times. Merab, the machine, 20-4, 3 KOs, 2 subs, 15 decision wins, 13 fight win streak. He's the current bantamweight champion. He's tied Dominic Cruz and TJ Dillashaw for second most consecutive title defenses in bantamweight division history. Performance of the night twice, fight of the night twice, and he's had the most unanimous decision wins in UFC bantamweight history. I like Cory Sandhagen. I know you want him to win this fight because you're a big Cory fan. I am with you. I can't do it. I can't get my head around it. And it's not against Cory. Like, I can see Cory. He's got the capabilities of catching Merab, submitting Rob. But until somebody slows this crazy animal down at this point, I'm picking Merab by decision because he's just insanity. I don't know. Every time I think something's going to happen and someone has the answer to Merab, and I don't even think necessarily like I favor anybody at Merab at this point, but I think, oh, this guy's going to catch him. It's in the air. I've given up on that. When it happens, it happens. It'll happen. But until it happens, I'm calling Merab.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Cory, and think of anyone in the division, he has the best chance to beat Merab. He's the most well-rounded. He has the highest fight IQ. He's adaptable and unconventional, and he's a finisher in all aspects of MMA. But Merab's cardio and relentless takedowns are just some kind of superpower that can't be stopped. You know, plus Merab is supremely confident after becoming champ, and he has also been vastly improving in the striking.
Yeah.
So I love both guys. I'm rooting for Cory because I badly want to see him get UFC gold. But I'm with you. I just have to pick Merab by decision. I just think odds wise, statistically, chances are Merab, wins a decision. And the only reason you would pick Cory is because it's MMA and anything can happen. And there's so many variables. And, in 100 fights, he might catch him, a few times with some of these crazy things he does. But overall, just relentless cardio and grappling is going to win Merab the majority of these fights.
Yeah, I mean, so far I think we're pretty much in agreement on this card, with the exception of the Emmett fight. But I think we both want a lot of these different guys to win. Yeah. But that brings us to our main event, where I feel like, again, I'm kind of in a similar boat.
Yeah, it might be a sad night for us here. Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira 2.
Alex Pereira, he's 12-3, 10 KOs, 2 decisions. Former UFC Light Heavyweight Champion, 3 successful title defenses, shortest time and fewest bouts to win championships in 2 divisions in UFC history. He's a former UFC middleweight champion as well. And he's the first and only fighter to win the middleweight and light heavyweight championship. Performance of the night 5 times. Highest significant strike performance in UFC history. This guy is just excitement personified. I mean, you read those championship credentials, and I just go back 12-3, 15 MMA fights. It's just incredible. But Magomed Ankalaev, he had his kryptonite last time. He's 21-1-1, 10 KOs, 10 decisions. He's the current UFC Light Heavyweight Champion. Performance of the night 4 times. So Magomed, if you look at that performance night 4 times, he is capable of some exciting performances, but he's also capable of being a blanket, saying, "The hell with you. I don't care if this is exciting. I'm going to do what I have to do to win." And I think we kind of saw that when he won the title from Pereira. It's like, and not to even say that like it's like super boring, but like he's going to do what he has to do, make it ugly. And then if it is going to get exciting, it's going to get exciting because now he's beating up your guy who's worn down and tired for everything he's doing. It's interesting to note, common opponents like Blachowicz, who Pereira had a win over. But that was a fight where I think we talked about in the past. I thought you could have argued Blachowicz won it, and it was a close fight. And then that's a fight that Ankalaev had a draw with Blachowicz, right? So it's styles make fights, and I just don't think Pereira has a great style for Magomed Ankalaev. That being said, him and Glover, like the improvements they've made in MMA, when you look at their fight history, I don't have any doubt in the world that they are making all kinds of adjustments like anybody. But there is something special about Alex Pereira. He does make leaps and bounds over everybody. I want to pick him so bad that he's going to catch, Ankalaev with some kind of knockout or something. And I know if he does, that the UFC is going to not give Magomed Ankalaev a title shot.
No, they're putting him at the bottom of the list after that.
Catches him like, oh, you got knocked out. I don't know what to tell you. Offense, run along. It's tough because I want to go with my heart on this one too, but this one, it makes a little more sense because Pereira is so dangerous with those hands. Instead, I'm going to pick Magomedov, but I'm going to do it in a superstitious way where I'm going to hope that Alex Pereira knocks him out in round 2. But I'll go Magomed Ankalaev decision for a night of sadness.
There are a lot of rumors that Alex was dealing with multiple serious injuries going into the last fight. Like a foot and a knee, and his hand was broken, and he was sick, and all these issues and stuff. And that could all be true and have affected him greatly. But also, like, Ankalaev didn't really use any of his wrestling in the last fight. He kind of beat Alex on the feet. And so if he mixes in the takedowns this time and keeps Alex guessing, I think he beats him again. Obviously, Alex has that power shot that can put anyone out, and I hope that happens. I'm with you. Obviously, he's a great counter striker, and that could happen at any moment. But I'm going to go with Ankalaev by decision. I think that's probably just the smart money bet. So,
yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we'll see. It could be a really fun night of fights, or it could be a sad night of fights if you're like us and these are some of your favorites. But whatever, Prochazka and Rountree is going to light it up. So that might be worth the pay-per-view alone for everybody. Can't wait. Wish this was on Paramount. Wish we were there. Yeah. But all right, what's up? What we got coming up one more time? We'll get out of here.
All right, October 11th, UFC Fight Night, Oliveira versus Gamrot. That's a fun matchup. 7 p.m. from Brazil. And then October 18th, UFC Fight Night, De Ridder versus Allen, 7 p.m. from Vancouver. And then October 25th, UFC 321, Aspinall versus Gane, 2 p.m. Eastern from Abu Dhabi.
And by the way, in case anybody's watching all of this too, and you're wondering, I just hit me. De Ridder's original opponent was supposed to be Fluffy Hernandez.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, enjoy UFC 320 this week. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.